In this video, we will look at creating your very first Android application. Now that's apart from the activity lifecycle that we just played around with the methods. This will actually be a real application that we can use. So the application will basically ask the user for his ID number. Now I found this info on a web page for the South African ID, which shows us certain digits, gives us our birth date or date of birth, and then some of the digits shows whether we are male or female, and then whether we are a SA citizen or a permanent resident. So we're going to create an application where the user will enter his ID number and we will then give him these info. So let's go on and click on Start a New Android Studio Project. We're going to start a new project and I'm going to name this project ID Information. And you can use your company domain, whatever you want there, same as with your project location. Choose the location that you want. Now we're going to design for the phone and the tablet for this one. Mine is just loading. Okay, and then I'm going to use 4.0.3 like it is there as the default, which covers 97.4% of the devices. Click on Next, and then I'm going to use the empty activity. I'm going to leave it as main activity. Maybe we can change this one to main_activity as well. Just make sure you change the top one as well. So I'm going to use it as main activity and main_activity. Remember, very important that your text or the name for your layout must all be lowercase, and you may use the underscore. Then click on Next or to finish. Right, let us just wait for the application to quickly start. Okay, so my application is done loading. Now remember, on the left hand side again, we've got the app folder. Under app, we've got Java, and then we've got 3 folders there, 2 with test, and then 1 without test. So we're going to open up that one as our main activity. It's the one currently open. If you go into your resources folder, into the layout folder, double click main activity, you'll get your layout file. If you see the blueprint as well, just click on this button to remove the blueprint for now. So if you zoom in, you can see that it's basically just a simple, normal, blank project. Nothing weird about this. Okay, so the first thing that I want to do now is to go and play around with the layout a bit. So for the layout, you'll see that we've got design and we've got text at the bottom. So the text would be your XML coding. And if you click on design, this is where you can drag and drop components. So we'll get to the dragging and dropping of components now. On the left hand side on the component tree, you'll see there's a main activity and it's got a relative layout now and a text view hello world. So I'm going to delete that text view. Just click on it and click on the delete button on your keyboard and it's gone. So I'm going to go back to the text now and change the relative layout to a linear layout. So go to your relative layout there. I'm going to type linear layout. You can see that Android helps us there with the autocomplete, so you can just click on it and you can see it changed at the top and as well as at the bottom. Now it gives us an error because a linear layout requires an orientation. So what I want to do is to also remove all of these paddings. So just remove all of the paddings there, and I'm going to add an Android orientation, and the orientation is going to be vertical. So now how the vertical layout works, you can see on the component tree now, it's a linear layout and it's vertical. So if I start adding components now to the screen, you'll see that it gets added vertically in a linear format, which means that any item that I add now to the screen will from top to bottom be added to the screen as I add them. Okay, I'm just going to delete those again. But that's basically how the linear layout works. If the linear layout was horizontal, it would have been adding components from left to right. And there's a lot of changes that you can make then to that specific layout as well, which we'll get to later on. So if you go to text, we've got a normal linear layout that's vertical, and in the design view, you can also see in the component tree, linear layout that's vertical. Now we want to ask the user, what is your ID number? So let's drag in one component to the screen. Now I'm going to drag in a number. You'll see it's under text fields. We call it an edit text or a text field. And then if you drag in one of those components, the number one. Now, why do I drag in the number text field there or the edit text? This helps us that when the user starts typing in this edit text or in this text field, it will only pop up the keyboard that contains numbers. So it's user friendly, and it also helps that the user do not type anything else there. So now if you click on the component and you go to the right hand side, you can see that there's an ID that we can specify. So this is very important for the components that you want to get input from, or you want to place something on a component on the screen while the application is running. Like we're going to do now, while the application is running, we're asking the user, please enter something to the screen or enter something to this edit text, and then we're going to retrieve whatever he entered. So we need an ID for that. So in order to do an ID, you're going to say, well, give it a description name, and I like to do my edit text start with an ET for edit text. Later on, when we do text views, we're going to use TV for text view. So that's just to easily identify them later on in coding. So the ID will be ET and then descriptive of what it's doing. So in this case, that's just the ID of the user. So I'm going to call it ET ID. Now you'll see the next two components, the layout width and the height. Those two are compulsory. It must be there for every item that you add to the screen. Now you can see for the width, it's match the parent, which means the width of this component will match the parent, which in this case is the linear layout, but it's basically the screen. So it's going to match the width of the linear layout, which is the width of the screen. Then the layout width says wrap content. Now wrap content will make your component as small as possible where everything still fits in. So if I say match parent here, you can see it matches the height of the screen as well, which we do not want. So we're going to say wrap content there, and then we've got our component nicely laid out. The next part that we can do with this edit text is to go and add a hint or text. So for an edit text, I would go with adding a hint there, so that the hint will display something like please enter your ID number, and then when the user starts typing, the hint disappears. Whereas if you add text there, the text will be there while the user typing, which means the user must first delete your text and then he can start typing. So the hint is the better one to do here. So when we're doing and working with text, I can just go and say please enter ID. I can just type that there, and it will add the hint there to say please enter ID. But this is not the correct way to do hints or any other text for that matter in Android. The correct way of doing that would be to go to the strings XML. So I'm going to go to my values folder, into the strings XML. And in this strings XML is where we will place all of our strings. So I'm going to add a new string here, and I'm going to call it something descriptive. And this name is like an ID for the text. So this is an identifier for your text. So I'm going to say hint ID, and then close it off, and it automatically closes down the string tag. And I'm going to say there, please enter your ID number. And I can save it by basically just going to the file menu and clicking save, or save all. Just look at your shortcut there to quickly save everything. Or you can just click on the save button on the left hand side. Okay, so there's my string. It's called hint ID, and it will have the text, please enter your ID number. So now if I go back to the main activity and I go back to the hint property, I click on the three dots, and you can see there's the hint ID, which will have the text, please enter your ID number. So if you double click on that, you can see the text has now been changed. So why do we need to do this in the strings XML? This is a way of reusing your code. So everywhere you need to type, please enter your ID number, you can just refer to hint ID and it will give you the text. But this also helps us when we need to design our app for different languages. We can just copy the strings XML and change for the specific language. So now let's just go back to the main activity. In the main activity, we are left with our edit text now. So let's see if we can do some other changes here. So go to view all properties to see a bit more properties. And the one I want to get to is the layout margin. So on the layout margin, I'm just going to make this a bit bigger so we can see all the margins. So there's a normal margin, there's bottom, end, left, right, and so forth. So if you want to change all of them, have the same value, then you can just enter it there. But for now, we want to have our left margin, let's say a 15 dp. That's device pixels. You can see it just moved a little bit from the left hand side, and on the right also a 15 dp, which means that on both sides, if I can just make this one smaller again, you can see on both sides now we've got some space, both sides. That's a margin. Okay, so then what we can also do is to change the text, where the text should be in the component. So if you go down, you will see that there's a gravity property, and if you go down a bit more, somewhere down the line, you'll get a layout gravity property as well. So there's the layout gravity property. So the first one, which is just the normal gravity property, let me just get that one again. There's the gravity property. I can set some values here. So I'm going to set the center horizontal one, and you can see what happened now to my text. For the normal gravity, it moves the text inside of your component. So you can see here, I centered horizontally my text inside of this component. So that's the gravity, the normal gravity. It's inside of the component, the text inside of the component. Whereas if you go to layout gravity and you say center horizontal here, it will move your whole component on the screen to center it horizontally or whatever you want to do. Okay, so I'm just going to go back to the margins again and maybe add a top margin as well. Let's say a top margin of 15 dp as well. So now it moved a bit from the top. So we've got something that looks like this. There's the edit text. It won't go until the edge of the screen. There's a margin there and at the top. And we've got an ID for this edit text. And we also have some margins, and it is centered in the middle of the screen. Okay, so the next thing that we need to have is obviously a button. So let's just add a button quickly. So go to widgets and you'll see the button there. So I'm going to drag the button to the screen. There we go. So there's the button. The button is on the screen. Again, let's set some margins for this button. So you're going to go to layout margin. Again, on the left, 15. On the right, 15. And let's say at the top, also 15. Okay, so there's the button. You can see now the button is exactly the same size in width as the edit text. Okay, so there's the button. For the button, we can also set the ID, but in this case, it's not necessary because we're going to do another way of working with the button. So it's not necessary to put the ID there. Again, the width and the height must be there. We added some margins. And then if you'd like, you can go to the bottom and you can see there's a text style that you can set the text to bold. And you can also set the text size, and you can also set the text color. There's the text color where you can also set the text color. So there's a lot of stuff that we can do with buttons and with components. So the next thing I want to do then after the button will be to add a text view. So I'm going to go down. Somewhere along the line, we will see a text view. I think it's at the buttons. There we go, at the widgets. So drag in the text view. You can see the text view there. Now for the text view, that's just basically showing some information on the screen. I'm going to have the margin also on the left-hand side and the right-hand side also 15. So that if it gets bigger than maybe just a few text there, it will still fit in our whole picture here. At the top margin, let's also add a 15 to just move it down a bit. Okay, so now we've got the text view. If I go down to the text style, let's make that bold as well. And maybe make the text size, let's make it 18 SP. So it will be a bit bigger. So there's the text view. Okay, so that's basically what we've got on the screen. So the user will enter his ID number. He'll click on the button, and then we want to show something on the text view. But obviously we don't want the text of the button to show button. We want to say submit or whatever. So go back to the strings XML where we add all of our text, and we're going to add a new string there. And we're going to call this one, or let's call it submit underscore button. And then we will just say the text as submit. You can save quickly. And then when you go back to the main activity, click on your button, go to the text property, to the three dots, and search for submit button. Double click it and you'll have submit on your button. Okay, so this so far, edit text, the button, and then this text view, we want to set the text encoding. So we need to have an ID for this text view as well. So on the ID, just make that one a bit bigger. On the ID there, I want to set the text as a text view now. So I'm going to say TV as the text view, and then give it a descriptive name there. So I'm going to say TV message, because that will be our message that we send to the user. So I'm calling that one TV message. Remember, this one was ET for an edit text. This one will now be TV for a text view. Okay, so that's basically the look of our application. We're going to have the user enter the ID, then he clicks on the submit button, and then we show him the information on that text view. Now, before we carry on with the rest of the application, let's just put some color in our life in this application, because at this stage it looks really bad without any colors. So I'm going to choose two colors on this page. If you go to materialpalette.com, you will get to something like this, where you can choose some colors. So I'm going to choose amber as my primary color, and then deep orange as the accent color. And then you can see it gives you your colors there. So if you go down a bit, you can see it looks something like this. You'll have a darker action bar there, and then the rest will be your primary color, and this will be the accent color. So now if you go to download, you'll see that there's an XML option. So if you click on XML, you can see it downloads the XML file for you. So I'm just going to quickly open up that file. There's the file. I'm going to open that with a normal text editor. And then you can see there's my colors now nicely in XML. So I'm going to close down the website. That will be my colors that I'm going to work with. So let me just take away that picture as well. So how do we add colors now to our application? And I'm going to use these colors that we've got here, the color codes. I'm going to show you now how to do that. So if we go back to our application where we left off, we can go on the left hand side, there's a colors.xml. So if you open up the colors.xml, it's very important now to not change the name of those three colors, because it's already used in your application. So it's color primary, and if I go to primary, you can see there's the primary color. So I'm going to copy that color, and I'm going to use that color there. So you'll see it changes to orange. Then let's say we want to use the color primary dark. So the dark one is this color there. So I'm going to copy that color, and I'm going to use that as the dark color. And then if I go back to that file again, there's also an accent color, and there's my accent color. So I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste my accent color there. Right, so now if we save and you go back to your main activity, you can see that something changes there. That's the action bar, and that's your notification area. And now let's say we want to have this as another color. So let's go to the colors XML, and let's add another color there. We're going to add a color, and we're going to call this the color primary, and I'm going to call it light. So if the primary light color, and you'll also find this on this XML file that you downloaded. So where's the light? There's the primary light. I'm going to copy that there, go into the primary light, and paste my color there. So I've got a primary light color as well. So if I save now, go back to my activity main, and let's quickly go to the text property and go to your linear layout now. Go into it and use the Android background property, and we're going to say we want to use the color primary light. Okay, and then we can save. So on the right hand side, you can already see how it changed. So now I'm using a background color that fits in nicely with the rest of the colors. Now let's say we want to have this submit button, the accent color, or maybe just the darker color. Okay, so let's go to the submit button quickly. If you click on it and you go to the color property, just see where's the color property. Well, let's just go to that button quickly. If you go to the button anywhere there, you can also add the Android background property, and we're going to say color, let's say primary dark. Okay, so on your button component in the text, just go and add Android background and add color primary dark, and then you can save it. If I go back to design, it will now look something like this. Okay, so this is still not very pretty, but it's a bit better than we had. Okay, so this is basically the application so far. This is what we need to do in order to get the colors there, is using the colors XML. And now our application seems ready to start working with. Maybe you want to have that submit text another color as well. So you can go down and let's see where's the text color. So that's the text color. And let's make that color a hash 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Fs, which is a white. And you can see then my submit text changed to a white. So it depends on what you want to have. If it's darker, lighter color would be better. But this works. So let's just leave it as it is now. And now we can continue with the rest of the application.